The basic. Reset. Off. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we veiled at the twilight's last beam, whose stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red bursting in the night. That flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Work on. Right, right. Counter call left. Forward, on.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic which stands indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you, members of the 555th Honors Detachment. Today's invocation will be offered by Airman First Class Dana Kiersten of the 555th Honors Detachment.
I'm John Scott. I am not Dana Kirsten. Please bow your heads. Gracious Father, we thank you for this gathering. We thank you for this gathering of veterans, families of veterans, Rotarians, members of our government, our security and safety forces. We thank you for bringing us together so that we can celebrate the lives of those who protect us, who have protected us, and live their lives as veterans, knowing the importance of what they did and what they do. We ask your blessing on the food that we've consumed today. We thank you for the hands that have prepared it, the farmers, the folks that have grown it and shipped it. And most especially, Lord, we ask that you have this food give us the energy and the strength so that we have the will to do your good work here. Again, we bless the veterans that have visited us today and who are among us in our Rotary Club. Amen.
Thank you, John. Please be seated. I have one short announcement, and that is that immediately after this meeting, there will be a new member meeting. With the new members of Rotary. Now Secretary Lynn will recognize our special guests.
Thank you, President Allen. We are extremely privileged today to have a World War II veteran with us. Robert Imes served in the U.S. Navy. He served in the Philippines from 1945 to 1946. He will be 99 in January. And I remember he spoke to this club not too many years ago from the same podium. Welcome, and let's recognize Robert Imes. He will be receiving some cards from the children from the YMCA who prepared those this morning. We'd also like to welcome our guests who are also veterans. So any guests, please stand if you were a veteran. Thank you for your service. And I know there's other guests who came with them, and we would also like to recognize you. If you could please stand, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Finally, we are very proud of our fellow Rotarians who are veterans. If you would please stand. Let's welcome again Mr. Todd Patterson, who will sing a medley of Armed Forces songs.
All right, we're gonna have a little fun with this. Before I start, I'd like to dedicate my singing today to my mother, Jane Patterson. The reason I wasn't here last year is because she passed on Veterans Day. And she didn't serve in the armed forces, but she served the armed forces. She was a little kid in Lima, Ohio, the one that showed up with sandwiches and donuts at the railroad station, feed the soldiers that were coming in, sailors and so forth. And then she continued do that sort of thing as director of the Wayne County Red Cross. And the veterans were always her special thing. So I'm going to sing the military branch songs. And when I do so, I'd like anyone that's a member of that branch to stand. Please sing along. And we'll go from one to another. I'll announce it. And let's enjoy celebrating our military services. All right, don't forget to pen. I'll get out of your way because I'm nothing special to look at, but there will be a slideshow. All right, Army. Guys. Over hill, over dale, as we hit the dusty trail, and those caissons go rolling along. In and out, hear them shout, counter marching right about, and those caissons go rolling along. And it's hi, hi, in the field of artillery. Shout out your numbers loud and strong, Rotary veterans. For wherever you go, you will always know that those caissons go rolling along. Navy. Boys, anchors away. Farewell to foreign shores we sail at break of day. Through our last night ashore, drink to the foam. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in thee. Through howling gale and cloud ourselves to win our victory. Semper Paratus is our guide, our pledge, our motto too. We're always ready to do or die. Hey, the scar, we fight for you. Up we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, suing to meet our thunder. At 'em now, give 'em the gun. Down we dive, starting a flame from under. Up with one terrible roar. We live in fame or go down in flames. Hey, nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. Air Force, the United States Marines, the USA. Anybody know the Space Force from? I looked it up, maybe there's.
Thank you, Todd. Greg Vaughn will now introduce our speaker.
Thanks, Alan. It's a pleasure seeing all of you today. It's great to see the room full. And I welcome all of you guests and veterans. So, fellow Rotarians and guests, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce to you Captain Kenneth L. Kitchen. Ken grew up in Shreve, Ohio, and is a graduate of Triway High School, the University of Akron, and the Ohio Military Academy. He served in the United States military as an active and reserve for a total of 24 years. Ken fought in Vietnam with the 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines in 1966 and 1967. After leaving the Marines, he served in the Ohio Army National Guard and Army Reserve as an armored cavalry officer. Ken's civilian career was in law enforcement, serving as a captain in the Wooster Police Department for 26 years. Fellow Rotarians, Captain Ken Kitchen.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to get applause before you speak, because you never know when you might not get any afterwards. So I'd like to thank you all for inviting me here today. It's truly an honor to be asked to speak to such a distinguished group. Since I've been helping Greg at the museum down there, which if any of you have not been there, you should make an appointment to come down. I've learned a lot more about what the Rotary Club has done for our veterans and our community. And you should all be very proud of that. We keep it up. We need more people like you. So I want to thank you for that. I was just telling Alan here, I came here not to talk about myself, but to talk about all these veterans and tell you some stories about veterans that I've heard over the years, and a little bit about the history of our great country. And so one of the first stories was about a fellow named Bob, who was a Walmart greeter. And Bob did a really good job. The people liked him and everything, but he was always 10 or 15 minutes late to work. So one day the boss called him in. He says, well, Bob, he says, we really like having you here, and the people like you, but you're always late to work. Bob said, well, I'm working on that, boss. And so the boss said, Bob, I realize you're retired from the armed forces. I'm just wondering, what did they say to you when you came in late there? Bob said, well, they said, good morning, Admiral. Can I get you some coffee, sir? So you never know who you might run into at the Walmart. Anyway, I'd like to share another story with you about some veterans from many years ago. A westbound wagon train moving through Indian country was attacked by a large group of hostiles. They circled their wagons and began to defend themselves. A small detachment of U.S. cavalry troopers patrolling nearby heard the fighting and rode to the sound of the guns. As they approached, the hostiles momentarily broke off their attack, and the troopers joined up with the wagon train. The situation was such that if the wagon train were re-attacked, all would perish. The lieutenant commanding the cavalry detachment gathered his troopers and said, we have two courses of action. We can remain with the train, possibly live a little longer, or we can ride out and attack the hostiles, which they will not expect. While they are distracted, the train may be able to slip away to safety. The lieutenant said, I have every right to order you to do this, but I would rather ride out with a column of volunteers. All 12 troopers immediately stepped forward. As they mounted their horses and rode out to certain death, the wagon master said this, I don't know where men like that go when they die, but wherever it is, when I die, I hope I join them. There are thousands of similar stories of personal sacrifice to save others. Greater love hath no man than that he lay down his life for another. The noted British philosopher John Stuart Mill stated, war is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling, which thinks nothing is worth a war, is worse. A man who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing he cares more about than he does about his personal safety, is a miserable creature who has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by the exertions of men better than himself. It is these people whom we call veterans whose exertions have kept us free. Regardless of individual duties, every role in the military is critical to the mission, whether in peacetime or in war. You have done what the greatest men and women of this country have done since 1775. You served. Just that decision alone makes you part of an elite group. In its 250-year history, our country has been threatened many times, but it has survived because citizens just like you have served in our armed forces to defend it. These are the men and women whom we honor on Veterans Day. I like to be sure that my Vietnam brothers and sisters, hear this story. You know, Vietnam has always been under the control of other countries, the Chinese, the Japanese, and the French. Prior to one of my speeches, a gentleman approached me and told me that he was a missionary to Vietnam. He said that on his most recent visit, a young Vietnamese man asked if he was an American and to have a picture taken with him. They were able to take the picture in spite of the fact that the communist government there monitors everything. The man stated that the Vietnamese people have a tremendous love and respect for the Americans who fought for them. The young man went on to say, the only taste of freedom that Vietnam has ever experienced in 3,000 years is when the Americans were here. So for those of you who, like myself, fought in Vietnam, if you felt like nobody appreciated what we did there, just keep that little story in mind. A lot of people did. Thank you. You know, war is brutal. The images of it are seared in our memory, but amazingly, there are good memories. One of those is peaches and pound cake. Does anybody remember peaches and pound cake? Where were you guys? Anyway, combat soldiers in Vietnam didn't have access to mess halls. We existed primarily on sea rations. They became known as little green cans of misery. There were other names given to some of them, not mentionable here. The most despised was the ham and lima beans. The most coveted were the peaches and pound cake. When mixed together, as sea rations go, they were quite a treat. Someday we will all join those who have served on battlefields from Lexington Green to Fallujah. We will gather to open a case of sea rations, and every box will be peaches and pound cake. We will join with a band of brothers to recount the experience of serving something greater than ourselves. Our country has a proud history, particularly its military history. I consider it a great privilege to be able to study it and to have been a part of it. When I read about the American Revolution, I see those brave men, 70 of them, facing much larger force of British soldiers on Lexington Green, where the first shots were fired in April of 1775. They stood there because they had a dream of a free and independent nation, a nation where they could govern themselves and not be subjects of a king. As I read on, I see the Alamo, where 185 men held out for 13 days against a force of thousands to give General Sam Houston time to organize and train an army. There were no survivors. Those who were not killed in battle were executed by the Mexicans. These men also had a dream that Texas could gain independence and become one of the United States of America. We could go on and on about the times America has sent our sons and daughters to fight, to deter aggression, to preserve liberty, and to protect people from the bullies of the world. We have always come as liberators, never as conquerors. You know, no one desires peace as much as the soldier, for he or she must pay the greatest penalty in war. Our armed forces are maintained solely for the preservation of peace or for the restoration of peace after it has been lost by politicians or by others. The reason I do these speeches is to continue to serve my country. Before I close, I would like to encourage each of you to join me in this effort. If you know our country's history, don't keep it to yourself. Talk to your children and your grandchildren. Talk to anyone who will listen. Tell them about the people who have served this great nation. Tell them that freedom is not free. The cost is extremely high. You know, America's founding fathers, who authored and signed the Declaration of Independence, included this line: "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." In other words, they risked everything for the cause of freedom and independence in order to create this great nation. I love the words of a song by Aaron Tippin. It goes like this: "I was born by God's dear grace in an extraordinary place, where the stars and stripes and the eagles fly. My friends, that's America." Now I'd like to say a little something to the spouses and families and friends who live with us and put up with us. I would ask that you please be tolerant of us, even when we don't move as quickly as you would like us to move, or we don't respond exactly as you think we should. Please consider that many of us still suffer from the ravages. It might be pain from an old wound or from the invisible wound, post-traumatic stress, or maybe just wear and tear on the body from the rigors of military training. We probably won't mention it often. We will mostly suffer in silence. But rest assured, the pain is there and it is real. So please be patient with us and know that you are our reason for living. Most Americans will never know of the horrors of war that our young soldiers have witnessed. They will never experience waking up at night soaked in sweat after reliving those horrors, or the nights when sleep won't come at all. They will never know how hard those young soldiers fought for them, for their country, and mostly for each other. May God bless you all. May God bless America. Thank you very much. Want me to say that? Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I'd be glad to, we have time left here to hear some of your thoughts and try to answer any questions that you might have. if I don't know the answer, I'll just make something up. Anyway, I know the last time I was here, we had some questions asked, and someone asked me what I thought of Jane Fonda. And if that gentleman is here again today, the answer will be the same as it was then. So,
I'll start it off. The first question is, describe your 13 months in Vietnam as a Marine grunt. Short version.
okay, yeah. Well, I've got a thing actually that I wrote that I use in some of my speeches when I talk about Vietnam. It's called A Day in the Life of an Infantryman. And it pretty much describes the, what the infantrymen, endured, and not every day, but many days. And so, I've learned over my time of studying the war, which I've done pretty much ever since the day I got back from there almost 60 years ago, is that there were many Vietnams. It depended on when you were there, what unit you were in, what your duties were, what kind of leadership you had, what the morale was in the unit, and so forth. And so, I was there in 1966 and 67. I was in a Marine unit. Everybody in that unit had enlisted in the Marine Corps and volunteered to serve. And so no draftees, no people that were forced to be in the military. The Army was somewhat different. And so at that time, in the things in the war were they're very good in our unit. Morale was good. Everybody was well disciplined. And, we fought the enemy. We had, we defeated the enemy there in every battle that we fought in Vietnam. The United States military never lost a battle in Vietnam. And I was reading something by an Army officer named Harry Summers, who served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he was saying he was in Hanoi with a negotiating party. And he said to one of the Vietnamese officers there, you never defeated us on the battlefield. And the Vietnamese officer said, that's very true. He said, it is also irrelevant. So the point being, battles are fought and wars are fought, not only on the battlefield, but in the halls of Congress and on the streets of the warring nations sometimes. So that's what happened in the Vietnam War. We were sent there to defend South Vietnam from communist North Vietnam. We did that, even with one hand tied behind our back, because our politicians at that time would not let us do things that we needed to do to win the war. But we still defeated the enemy. When we left there in January of 1973, after signing a peace agreement, South Vietnam was still a free, independent nation. And they were able to defend themselves because we had promised them material support. And they remained a free, independent nation for 2 years and 3 months till April of 1975. During that time, because of election results in the United States, our Congress used a majority to defund all that aid that we promised South Vietnam. And so the North Vietnamese army, which we had decimated, simply rebuilt itself, reattacked the South, and they were unable to defend themselves. That's how the war in South Vietnam ended. And as this story about the missionary goes, some of the South Vietnamese there appreciated that we had come there and fought for them. I actually know another person who's a missionary there who says that there are people that are still waiting for us to come back and save them after all these years. And so our country, after bailing out on those people, lost a lot of prestige and a lot of honor and a lot of trust. And of course, you all realize our politicians did the same thing to the people in Afghanistan not too long ago. So anyway,
Thank you.
anybody else? Where's that Jane Fonda guy?
You want to know what your answer was?
Oh, some of these people probably don't know anything about what we're talking about, right? Some of the people that didn't live through that era. Anyway, Jane Fonda, the communist sympathizer at that point, actually went to North Vietnam and had her picture taken sitting on the seat of a North Vietnamese anti-aircraft gun. And she pledged to the North Vietnamese that she would struggle with them. And so that's why they asked the Vietnam veterans what they think of Jane Fonda. And the answer is, when she wanted to come back to the United States, we should have said, whoa, sorry, you're not welcome here. If you like North Vietnam, get your butt back over there and stay there. So, yes, sir.
You talked to us about the use of Agent Orange in Vietnam. I never you as a friend who's recently passed away from that.
That's a good question. I think most of us have been affected in some way by the Agent Orange exposure. I know I read one thing where someone said, if you've got it, Agent Orange gave it to you. I personally was exposed to it, and you know, I have neuropathy in my hands and feet. I had bladder cancer, had a couple of blood clots, and many of those things we attribute to exposure from Agent Orange. Not all I can say about it. Sure, some of the other guys who maybe fared even worse and are presently gone died from exposure to Agent Orange. Sunday?
So I don't have a question. However, listening to you during Vietnam, and recently listening to somebody, another veteran from Afghanistan, your story as far as doing the best that you could while you were there, when asked where are they now, are so similar. It's almost chilling. So I think no matter what theater you're served in, or where they are today, all of our veterans have done their best. So on behalf of the commission, I just want to thank you and every veteran in this room whether you were on land, sea, or warehouse, it doesn't matter. Thank you for your service.
I'd like to ask a question now. How many of you think our country is at war currently? Well, I hate to tell you this, but we are. It's kind of a long story to explain, but if you remember back around 1960, there was some of you that were here then, some of you younger folks weren't, but a guy named Nikita Khrushchev, who was prime minister of the Soviet Union. And he made a speech and he said to the people of the United States, we do not need to invade the United States. We will destroy you from within. And they have spent, the communists have spent all that time since that and before trying to do just what he said they would do, trying to destroy our country from within. And if you were around here in the late 60s and 70s, you know a lot of the same things were going on in our country that are going on now. This chaos. Groups were bombing buildings and killing police officers. And what's going on here today is just history repeating itself, because our enemies know that that's the way you can destroy a country, is from within. Because battles are fought, wars are not fought, not only on the battlefield, but the halls of Congress, on the streets of the countries, warring countries. And they know that, and they haven't forgotten it. I think the trouble is a lot of our people, we change politicians about as often as we change underwear. And a lot of them don't know those lessons. They weren't around here in 1960s and 70s. So they don't understand what's going on, but unfortunately, that's, in my opinion, is what's happening today. History is repeating itself. Anybody else? This might be my cue to sit down. Thank you.
Ken, thank you very much. We appreciate your remarks. Todd Patterson will close out our musical program singing God Bless the USA.
Steve, I'd like to suggest that guy that's probably home doing his James Bond workout video. Many of you know this song. Please feel free to sing along. Here we go. If tomorrow all the things were gone, worked for all my life, had to start again, just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. Because there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota, the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Wayne County and New York to LA. But it's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget men who died gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this man. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died gave their right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
If you are able, please stand in silence as we remember Rotarians who were veterans and who have passed away in recent years. And remembering all veterans, families, and those who served in harm's way. Clyde J. Webb. William Lee Cope. Stanley Galt. Joseph Retzler. Lud Huck. Sam Shapiro. Bob Braden. Gordon Giffen. David Briggs. Robert Pete Wagner. Charles Franks. Charles Doherty. Walter C. Grosjean. John Fleming. Edward Everhart. Stephen Webster. Thank you all for coming. We stand adjourned.
If the veterans could all come up front for a picture.
Thanks.